Hello everybody! The wind has finally died down enough for me to make this video, so today I will be talking about traveling to Iceland on a budget and how and where I spent my money during my 2-week trip to the land of fire and ice. Alex and I chose to reduce our spending as much as possible so that when we wanted to splurge later, our money would go further. But how cheaply did we manage to get by in Iceland? Let's take a look. The first area that we ended up spending our money on was transportation. After you land at the airport, you have to find some way of getting from the airport to your destination, which in our case was Reykjavik. Now Reykjavik is about 45 minutes drive away from the airport, which doesn't make for a very fast walk. Hitchhiking is pretty common in Iceland, but it didn't seem like it was very common to and from the airport, so I wouldn't recommend trying to hitchhike / walking this unless you are truly okay walking that entire distance, which seemed like it would be roughly about a 10-hour walk depending on your pace. The next cheapest option is to take the bus from the airport, and specifically the city bus, which comes in just over $17 US. It is not, however, the fastest option, taking almost double the amount of time as the more direct bus lines. This city bus does make stops along the way, so do be prepared for that. You will also need to know which stop you're going to get off on if you take this method of transportation from the airport. While you may get a friendly bus driver that could maybe tell you which stop is closest to your accommodations, I wouldn't recommend this because it would be hard for them to do it for everybody. What I would recommend doing is which is what we did, is we just had our Google Maps open while we were traveling on the bus through the city, and we just got off on a stop that was fairly close, and it was maybe a 6 to 10 minute walk for us with our stuff at that point to our accommodation, which I would completely recommend. Or if you are a planner, you can look up your stop in advance and just know which one you're gonna get off on at that point. We also ended up taking a bus at a different point in our trip. We took it to save ourselves a couple hours of walking to the point where we were going to start hitchhiking, which came to about roughly $5 US a person for that bus ride, which was a welcome expense since it saved our feet a couple hours of walking before we started hitchhiking. So that was another expense for us in transportation. It got really dark suddenly in here. I feel like that's gonna look weird. But anyway, later in our trip we were able to use a car one day for sightseeing, which we put some gas in the tank so that we could drive around with it. And I didn't know this before, but Icelandic gas prices are incredibly high. So I looked it up. I think it was about $7.50 per gallon in Iceland. So we spent about $18 total putting just a couple of gallons of gas in the car, which compared to the $2 or $3 a gallon that I'm used to, it was kind of crazy. But that was another expense for us that we spent for a day of sightseeing, but I think it was totally worth it. And finally, of course, we had to get back to the airport at the end of our trip. So instead of taking the city bus this time, we were unable to do that, and we took the fly bus, which was a more direct route, and it came in around $26.50 a person. In total, my transportation cost for the 2-week trip was around $57.48. Now this comes with a very important side note. We walked everywhere. We walked to and from downtown Reykjavik. We walked all around downtown Reykjavik. We pretty much never took public transportation except for the one time that I told you about. This allowed us to kind of absorb the city as we walked and kind of took that as our sightseeing opportunity in very slow travel style, and it saved us money in the long run. So that's why we chose to do it that way, and that's why our expenses for that section of our trip were so low. And once you're in the more downtown centralized area of Reykjavik, it's very easy to kind of just walk everywhere. Things are pretty close together, and especially if you go sit at a cafe or you go eat or you just sit at a bench somewhere, you can kind of recover and keep going. But it's up to you how you want to choose to travel when you're around Reykjavik. Fortunately for us, our accommodations were more centrally located as well. If you have stuff that's farther out, it may be harder. But we were very lucky to get close to the city, and we ended up just walking everywhere. The next area that I spent money on was activities. Now, we tried to do as many free things as possible, but for a couple small expenses, we were able to have some great experiences that I think were totally worth the price. Iceland is renowned for its hot springs, but some of the more famous hot springs are pretty expensive to get into, and they get more expensive for every step up you wish to include in your package deal. Fortunately for us, our host was able to get us into a small community bath that was by the university for just around $4 a person, which is really a great price. It seemed that some of the more public bathhouses in the area were available for just around $10 US if you were just wanting to go into a bath, which I think is pretty reasonable for the price as well, and definitely a great experience. You get to kind of sit and chill with everybody in some nice steaming bath water. It was very cool. But the one that we went into was also pretty awesome. It was right next to the ocean, and so you were able to kind of run into the very, very cold ocean and then run back into the bath right there. And they also had like a locker room, shower off facility as well. So it was very nice. Now, if you watched my Iceland Part 1 video, you'll know that we went to the Perlin observation deck, which cost about $5 per person to get into, which I think was about half the price as going up to the observation deck near the, or in the famous church. Name right here. And I think that it was totally an awesome view as well, so if you're looking to save some money but still have an awesome view of the city, I would definitely recommend going to the Perlin instead. There's also a really cool gift shop and a restaurant and a museum inside there as well, so just a really awesome place to go and check out. Now, the last activity that we spent money on was going to the waterfall. There was a 700 krona charge to park in the parking lot that was closest to the waterfall, which is roughly $6.50. Now, we weren't able to confirm this, but when you are driving down the main ring road to get to the waterfall, you'll take the turn that gets over to the waterfall, whether it be a right or a left depending on where you're coming from. There is a parking lot that's right to the right there when you turn in, and I don't know, but that parking lot looked like it may be free, and then it was maybe a 2-block walk to the waterfall at that point. And so I would definitely recommend parking there if you're going to see that waterfall. It might save you a $6.50 charge. However, it wasn't too expensive, and if you go with a group of people, they can all pitch in, but the waterfall is definitely worth seeing even with the $6.50 charge. So in total, I spent $11.76 on activities during my 2-week stay in Iceland. Of course, we had to eat while we were on our trip. We had decided that it was far too expensive for us to eat out in such a touristy, expensive country, so we ended up buying all of our own groceries and preparing all of our own meals. There was also 1 week of time that we stayed with a awesome family that cooked very delicious meals for us, which was great. So my total expense in the food category only was $31.05 for the 2-week trip that we were in Iceland. This also comes with a very important note though, that we were only buying foods that were fairly cheap and also fairly filling, so if you are wanting to splurge more on your food, your expenses might be a little bit higher than ours, but we were very strict on what we were spending, and that's how our total ended up being so low. Now, the very last category that I ended up spending money on was buying postcards for the lovely people that have decided to support me on Patreon, and they get a postcard per every country that I visit. This is an expense that I am grateful for, and I would love to be sending more of you guys postcards from all the countries that I am visiting. Currently, I am in Portugal. This video is a little bit late, sorry about that. What are you telling me? So if you are interested in joining the Neko No Land community as well and receiving awesome bonuses and rewards, feel free to click the link below to my Patreon page where you can receive awesome stuff and also get your name at the end of this video. Now, you'll notice that I don't have any expenses listed for accommodation. We were able to find hosts for the entire duration of our trip to Iceland, and while we know this won't always be the case, we were lucky enough to reduce our expenses for this particular trip this time. To total up all the categories for my trip, we have $57.48 on transportation, $11.76 on activities, and we have $31.05 on food, which comes to a grand total of $100.29 for my 2-week stay in Iceland, plus the one-way ticket that we had that was about $220.40. It puts my grand total at $323.69. Now, this isn't to say that everybody traveling to Iceland will experience a similar cost for a 2 weeks of travel time. Traveling can be as cheap or as expensive as you make it, and sometimes situations don't always fall in your favor. For example, if we had been able to get a free ride to and from the airport, we would have been able to cut our expenses literally in half. I hope this video gave you guys some insight and tips to traveling in Iceland in a cost-effective way. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section down below, and don't forget to subscribe if I can say it. Safe travels!
Next level.